Okay, it's time to start a relatively quick project, I hope, for my 78 Chevy K20. So the main job of this truck lately has been as a plow truck in the winter, but I actually have been using it as my daily driver over the summer here. And it's pretty good as a daily driver. You know, it's actually been pretty reliable and it runs well. But there's a few things that I want to do and kind of have needed to get done for a long time. So basically, first thing will be to take apart the top end, clean it up a bit. The main job for this little project is to change out the heads. This is a Chevy 350. I rebuilt the small block, or the short block, actually about 30 years ago. This was one of the first engines I ever built. And at that time, it was 350 bored 30 over, flat top pistons, stock crank. It's a 4-bolt main, nothing too fancy. And then I had it that way for a while, and then at some point when I put it in this truck, I switched out the heads. Initially I had 461 camel humps on it. When I put it in this truck though, I just put smog heads. So these are just probably mid-70s Chevrolet smog heads. They're really pretty terrible. So the main thing for this project today will be to take these heads off and put some better heads on it. And so this is what's going to go on. So a small block Chevrolet, you know, they're reliable, dependable. They're kind of boring, but they do make good power for the price. And for the price, it's really hard to beat what's available in the aftermarket for small block Chevy. So these are Flotek, these are 180cc aluminum heads and 64cc chambers, so that'll bump the compression up over what I got on there now. And I suspect they're just going to end up flowing way better than those old smog heads. So I'm going to change out the heads. I got some gaskets and I'm going to put a clutch fan on the fan. So anyway, that's the project for this time. Of course, other things I like to do is change out the exhaust. That'll have to wait. That'll be done at some point in the future, I suppose. These square body Chevys have probably the easiest radiator in the world to remove. I think it was just a couple bolts and that radiator lifts right out. The shroud comes right out. Piece of cake. The TPI, not hard to work on, but I gotta say, working on these TPI intakes is a bit annoying. It's, you know, there's a lot of screws. You can't take it off without taking it all apart first. And in contrast to a more modern engine, you know, with the LS series of engines are just so easy to work on, this TPI, it's not hard, but it's just kind of annoying. One of the things I considered while doing this was whether to change out the cam. It does have an aftermarket cam, it's just a very mild truck cam in it right now. You know, so what I did is I looked at all the lifters and I thought, you know, if any of them showed any significant wear, then I would take them out, buy a new cam, and possibly upgrade to a retrofit roller cam at the same time. But I checked all the lifters and they looked fine, so I just left the cam in place. On both heads, next to this bolt, there was quite a bit of debris. Initially I was wondering if it was metal, but it wasn't. It was just plastic or rubber. And where it came from, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm guessing that it's one of the valve oil seals, or pieces of multiple, I guess. But the interesting thing is it never burned any oil, it never consumed any oil. but either way it chewed up seals somewhere. These heads that I've pulled off, these are 336 casting numbers, so kind of just a mid-grade smog era open chamber head. They have a 76cc chamber and probably 194 valves, intake valves. I didn't measure them. Except for the limitation of the casting though, everything looked fine. All cylinders were working well. I didn't detect any cracks or anything like that. So I think they were doing their job. And the point of all this though is to upgrade to a head that is more efficient, flows better, and the 64cc chamber, as mentioned, will improve the or increase the compression ratio. The cylinders looked fine, pretty average for a relatively high mileage engine. Nothing really remarkable there. It does have flat top pistons. One of the things I wanted to do was to give the intake manifold a thorough cleaning. As you can see, there's a fair amount of grime and dirt, and the aluminum is a bit oxidized as well. So I'm trying out this aluminum brightener, and I think it's basically probably just muriatic acid. Some sort of acid. But it's supposedly good for cleaning aluminum, so let's give it a try. Now I read the instructions after I did this, but apparently you're supposed to leave it on for several minutes. I basically just applied the product and then power washed it off almost right after. So I probably should have left it longer, but it still worked well. As you can see, it actually worked pretty well. The grime has been removed and the aluminum does look quite a bit brighter. It's not perfect, but it is good enough for this. One of the other things I planned to do was to clean all the fuel injectors. And these are all pretty much just stock GM, except for I have two that are a mismatch. And I'm not sure why those two are mismatched, and I probably should just replace the whole set, but I didn't do it at this time. What I'm using here is this is an injector tester. And this, I just bought this cheap off Amazon, and basically it just fires the injectors at there's a few different, I think, modes on the programmer. Basically just, you can set it to how long you want it to hold open. And then the other thing I have is this pressurized canister, and that will connect up to the injector, and then I'll be using that big jug of brake cleaner in the background to inject pressurized brake cleaner through the injectors. And so I did do one of them just individually, but then I found this setup basically just worked better. I basically just connect to the pressurized brake cleaner to the fuel rails, and then individually fired off the injectors one by one. I think this did a pretty good job cleaning out the injectors. I wonder if I should just replace them, but a full set is pretty expensive, though I thought I would try this first. One of the things I wasn't planning to do anything with is the radiator. This truck never overheated, and from the cooling system I had zero issues with it. However, when I took the radiator out and looked at it, it was clearly in pretty poor condition. All this copper, I guess, basically just flaked away. So the solution was to order a new radiator. I got this from Rock Auto. They had a lot of options in direct fitment radiators, and I don't remember exactly how much it cost, but it was reasonably priced. It's aluminum with plastic. Pretty much all the other small block Chevys I've messed with in the last, say, 20 years have all had headers, so haven't had a whole lot of issues working with exhaust manifolds, but I did have one here where on the one side the bolts just wouldn't align. And so what I found is they make a tool for this, and so this is basically a tool just for spreading the exhaust manifolds, and this worked really well. So this tool basically just works as a spreader. You fit it into the inside of the exhaust manifold and then apply tension and adjust until the holes align. As a semi-related comment, this little 3/8 wrench, this is a Nipros. I got this as a gift last year, and it has quickly become my favorite ratchet. So it's a 90-tooth Nipros, and it is just really a great ratchet. I touched up the paint with some red enamel. I think it looks pretty good. And when it came time to adjust the rockers, I did find a problem. And the problem is the springs on these heads are too wide, and it isn't possible to adjust these rockers without interference with the spring retainer. So basically I had to do some unplanned purchasing to solve this predicament. And I bought some slightly longer push rods. These are pump cams. They're a nice hardened push rod. And I had to buy some rockers as well. And the rockers, these are from Summit. These are just the kind of generic stainless steel rockers. And with a roller rocker though, and of course a roller tip, these have enough clearance to get past those springs, no problem. Time for new spark plugs. I'm using these NGK TR55s. Now this purchase wasn't necessary, but I thought it'd be worth it. I got new valve covers. These are cast aluminum with kind of a wrinkle black finish, and I think they actually look really nice. So I'm quite happy with these. They're pretty solid construction, cast aluminum, and the thing I like best about them actually is they have these like cast-in bosses to help distribute the force. So previously I would use spreader bars. With these valve covers, it's not necessary. The clutch fan installed as it should. It looks great in there, fits into the shroud, no problem. Same cannot be said about the temperature sender for the temperature gauge. That was a bit of a fiasco, and I'm going to make a separate video about that. This truck has been using Megasquirt 2 ever since its conversion to fuel injection several years ago. I did have to build a whole new tune for it, which was not a big deal. This is just early on in the tuning process. Since then, I've nailed the tune down quite a lot, and it's actually running really well. So that's it. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this project. I like the way the engine looks. I like the way it runs. I think those heads certainly did help. And it still needs an exhaust. That'll probably happen in the spring, but I'm happy with how it is right now. And so the plow is back on the truck. Hopefully it'll be several weeks or hopefully a month or two before we have any real snow. But either way, the truck's ready to go.